Friendship is supposed to be a sanctuary, a bond built on trust, loyalty, and love. But what happens when that bond becomes a weapon? When envy, obsession, or manipulation twists something sacred into something sinister? Today, we're diving into 5 haunting cases where friends became killers. These stories aren't just about murder. They're about betrayal in its most intimate form. Christian Aguilar was an 18-year-old freshman at the University of Florida, full of promise and ambition. He dreamed of becoming a biomedical engineer and was known for his warm smile, athletic spirit, and uplifting personality. But on September 20th, 2012, his life was stolen by someone he once called a friend, Pedro Bravo. Christian had recently begun dating Erica Freeman, a mutual friend and Pedro Bravo's ex-girlfriend. The three had attended Doral Academy in Miami, and while Erica had moved on, Pedro hadn't. He was consumed by jealousy and heartbreak, which he documented in disturbing detail in his personal journal. Pedro arranged to meet Christian under the guise of reconciliation. But instead of talking things out, he poisoned him with sleeping pills, strangled him, and buried his body in a shallow grave in the woods. In 2014, Pedro Bravo was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life without parole. He died in prison in March 2025. Skylar Neese was a bright, ambitious 16-year-old from Star City, West Virginia. She had a 4.0 GPA, worked part-time at Wendy's, and dreamed of becoming a criminal defense attorney. But on July 6, 2012, she climbed out of her bedroom window for what she thought was a late-night hangout with her best friends. She never came home. What followed was one of the most chilling betrayals in modern true crime history. When Skylar's parents realized she was missing, they quickly alerted the authorities. Her family and friends printed missing posters and created a Facebook page dedicated to finding her. Sheila confessed to the Skylar's parents that the three of them had snuck out the night before to get high. But she stated that they had dropped Skylar off at the end of the road before midnight. Throughout the search for her missing friend, Sheila would comfort Skylar's parents. She would help hand out missing person flyers and even posted tributes on social media. But the investigators soon found out that the two girls had lied about what happened that night. Rachel had a breakdown and confessed to the police. It turned out that the two girls had planned Skylar's murder for months. They drove Skylar to a remote spot, counted to 3, and stabbed her over 50 times. Why? Rachel later confessed, "We didn't like her." Skylar's body was found months later, buried under twigs and dirt. Her killers were sentenced to decades in prison, but the emotional scars remain for a community that trusted them. Jessie Blodgett was a gifted musician, a passionate actress, and a radiant soul. At just 19, she was living her dream, writing music, mentoring students, and starring in a local production of Fiddler on the Roof. But on July 15th, 2013, her life was stolen in the most intimate betrayal imaginable, by someone she trusted completely. Her killer wasn't a stranger. It was her close friend and former boyfriend, Daniel Bartelt. Jessie and Daniel had dated briefly in high school, but remained close friends. They wrote songs together, performed side by side, and shared a deep creative bond. But behind the facade of friendship, Daniel harbored dark impulses. On July 14th, Jessie attended a cast party celebrating the success of Fiddler on the Roof. She returned home around 12:30 a.m., visibly upset. She wrote about the unwanted attention in her journal before going to bed. The next day, Jessie's mother came home for lunch and found Jessie lifeless in her bed. She had been SA'd and strangled. Her body was carefully staged to look like she was peacefully sleeping. While the police investigated the murder, Daniel mourned with Jessie's family, sharing memories of her and crying together with others while sitting in the family's living room. It was in that living room that Daniel received a call from the police, asking him to come in. A slip of the tongue during police questioning, mentioning details not yet public, led to his arrest. October 14th, Bartelt was sentenced to life in prison. His motive? Rejection, control, and a disturbing fascination with violence. On January 6, 2016, 3 friends met at the upscale Olivier Café in Jakarta. They laughed, caught up, and ordered drinks. Minutes later, one of them, 27-year-old Mirna Salihin, was convulsing, foaming at the mouth, and dying. Her Vietnamese iced coffee had allegedly been laced with cyanide. The prime suspect? Her close friend, Jessica Kumala Wongso. Jessica and Mirna had studied together in Sydney, Australia. They were once inseparable. But after years apart, something had changed. Jessica arrived at the cafe an hour early, ordered drinks, and placed shopping bags around them, blocking the view of CCTV cameras. When Mirna took a sip, she immediately collapsed. She was rushed to the hospital, but pronounced dead within the hour. Jessica was arrested weeks later and charged with premeditated murder. The trial lasted 135 days and was broadcast live across Indonesia. Prosecutors claimed she poisoned the drink out of jealousy and resentment. Jessica was later convicted and sentenced to 20 years in prison. On December 16, 2000, Mike Williams set out for a solo duck hunting trip at Lake Seminole, Florida. He never came home. His boat was found, his gear recovered. But Mike? Gone. Authorities ruled it an accidental drowning. His wife Denise claimed the life insurance, and the case went cold. But beneath the surface, something sinister was brewing. The police later learned that Denise was having an affair with Mike's best friend, Brian Winchester. The two married in 2005, 5 years after Mike's disappearance. It wasn't until 2016, when their marriage crumbled and Brian kidnapped Denise at gunpoint, that the truth began to unravel. Brian confessed that he had murdered Mike, shot him, buried him, all so he and Denise could be together. Brian was granted immunity in exchange for his testimony against Denise, though he is still serving time for the kidnapping. In 2018, Denise was found guilty of conspiracy to commit murder, first-degree murder, and being an accessory after the fact. She was sentenced to life in prison. These chilling cases remind us that evil doesn't always come from strangers. Sometimes it wears a familiar face, a friend, a confidant. If you found this video compelling, hit that like button, subscribe for more true crime deep dives, and click the notification bell so you know when we've got a new upload. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe,